If you have watched Cuphead content for a while, you have probably seen people doing some crazy challenges, from not moving, to not jumping, to playing the game with your feet, which made me think, what can I do, which someone never has done before. So I went to the drawing board and started thinking, what can I do? I have played Cuphead a lot, and I would say I'm somewhat great at the game. I was thinking of using weapons with their first letter having to match the first letter of each boss, but that got really complicated for my small brain. So I decided on this. It's not anything really unique, but I could only use weapons with the same color as the character I'm playing. So if I'm Mugman, I can only use Lobber, Roundabout, and the Pea Shooter. If I play as Cuphead, I can use the Spread and Crack Shot, and if I play as the Rule 34 victim, aka Miss Chalice, I can only use the Converge and Charged. I will not play through the DLC, only the main game. And since playing as just one of them is pretty boring, I wanted to try using all of them to see how it would play out when I'm forced to use a certain combination of weapons to see how well I would do. I played on normal mode and I didn't have time to do the King Dice fight and the Devil, so only Inkwell Isle 1, 2 and 3 were the ones I completed. I also just wanted to talk about something here in the intro, which is something that is a bit important if you're a subscriber. If you just got this video recommended to you and you don't care for me, you can just skip this. The past weeks has been pretty hectic. First, I finally got my driver's license, which took a lot of time. I also got COVID and been having a headache since February, which obviously has made it more difficult for me to upload more content. And I always take some time uploading videos because I think of quality over quantity, usually. And just now recently my grandmother passed away, and although it didn't affect me too much personally, as she had been sick for the past months, losing a family member is always sad. All of these things is the reason I haven't been uploading too much, but with all of that said, let's just get back to the video. Also, I haven't played Cuphead in a while. Last time I did, I was doing the King's Gauntlet and managed to mess up against the Queen. And after that, I got a brand new controller. Why did I buy a new one? Well, I just told you, I failed the King's Gauntlet. And although I'm a bit rusty at the moment, I decided to just jump into this challenge with no warm-up, even though Inkwell Isle 1 is pretty much a warm-up anyways. Oh, and one final thing. When I recorded this, the audio from the game got cut, and there is no sound in any of the matches. So I'm just gonna play some nice background music while you're watching this. I jumped onto my first playthrough of the game where I had all the weapons, as I can't really get every weapon from the start, something I'm required to do if I'm gonna do this weapon color challenge. I decided to use Cuphead, as Spread and Crackshot are two really good weapons. Looking back at my clips, I definitely did use Cuphead the most. I warmed up destroying 3 sentient vegetables, which was fine. I did take some unnecessary hits throughout though, but still beat it on my first attempt. Also note, I pretty much beat every boss in just one attempt with some exceptions, which I will get to later. Afterwards we went south, destroyed Ryu the Frog with his constantly spamming Hadouken attacks. I still used Cuphead because every time I wanted to change between Cuphead and Mugman I had to exit the game just to switch character, with Miss Chalice being the exception, as she gets swapped out by just using the Cookie Charm. But I mostly used her for flying levels. We then beat up the Blue Blob, which again was very easy. I also landed a perfect Spread super shot, which is always satisfying to see. I mean, just come on, look at this. We then jumped into a plane where destroying Hildeberg and her astrology BS, which at this point I started to get more and more into my Cuphead gamer skills again. I don't think this is really important to say, but all of this took me roughly 50 minutes to do. And by 50 minutes I mean 50 minutes of recording from the start of Inkwell Isle 1 all the way to Inkwell Isle 3. It kind of looked like I was speedrunning the game, but honestly I just didn't have much time to do this. I also used the Heart Ring charm, which gives me back hit points by parrying pink objects. And since it didn't nerf my damage like the other extra hit point charms, we breezed through the entire Inkwell Isle 1. Now, when we fought the Sunflower from Plants vs Zombies, I decided to use Mugman just to test out the Lobber Roundabout strat. Yes, I know I used him for Hildeberg, but it doesn't really matter whether I'm Cuphead or Mugman when I'm doing a plane level, because they both have the same weapons. Inkwell Isle 2 went pretty much the same way. I wanted to use Mugman a bit more, so I decided to use him to take on the Baroness. I decided to restart because there's no way in heck I'm fighting this fucking muffin. And upon a restart, we got the easiest phase, this orange corn thing. I think it's based on these, but I've never actually seen this type of candy before. This guy is really easy, as he always moves in a pattern. He always go from left to right, but sometimes it might go up and down. This is very easy to get around, as if he's on the right side going left and he decides to go down, he will still go left once he's all the way down. So you can easily just jump or dash over him. Then got this guy. I know some people refer to him as a chocolate bar, but he's clearly a waffle. I mean, come on, that's a waffle. This guy ain't too bad either. He just flies around and shoots his head, body parts, out in different directions. So it wasn't too bad. Then finally we got the Jawbreaker. He's literally a Minecraft zombie. Just slowly inches his way towards you, so he's really easy. Then we shot our entire load over the Baroness. She got understandably mad and turned her entire castle into the monster house, and this phase went by real quick. Probably because I creamed her entire house before. But this phase only lasted for like 18 seconds. And no, that's not a joke, just look. At this point, the 3 next bosses would be some of the more challenging bosses in the game, those being Jimmy the Cuck, Krusty the Clown, and Pinky and the Brain. We jumped into our plane and decided to cuck Jimmy for a bit. Used his sword attack, which is probably the easiest. We then took some unnecessary damage, bombed this thing that I don't know what is. It just looks like that one ghost type Pokemon from Gen 5. He then gets the brilliant idea of making a puppet, which we absolutely shit on. We then take some more unnecessary damage and Jimmy the Cuck has been cucked. At this point, I changed back to Cuphead for Krusty, mostly because Spread and Crackshot is like the best for this fight. Easy to hit the ducks flying around, useful for taking out the Pingus, and super satisfying seeing the Spread super being used right in his face. Now for Pinky and the Brain. This was the first boss that I kinda choked on. I only survived with 1 HP on this one. Wally Warbles is, I would say, a bit more difficult for newer players, as the second, third, and maybe the last phase can be a bit scary. The second phase he shoots out a lot of feathers, but luckily I have played a lot of Geometry Dash. Third phase is where we fight the Brain. He mostly just moves around like the DVD logo on a TV, occasionally using his pack-punched ray gun while some weird spiky eggs hovers around him. In the final phase, Wally will be on his deathbed. This phase isn't too hard, just remember that the yellow pills goes towards you, use the bomb weapon, and watch out when his heart flies up and spits towards you. Then see the most unnerving part of the game, cannibalistic birds. Now, it's time for Shrek, the dragon from Shrek, aka Matchstick. At this point I had my first death, which was kinda sad. I mean, for me at least. It's my problem. I was hoping I could beat the game without no deaths, but whatever. I used Mugman for this one, and besides Heat's Flame Man jumping around and the fireballs he shoots out in the third phase, really isn't anything you need to worry about, besides, you know, the moving platforms as well. For Inkwell Isle 3, I switched back to Cuphead as Crackshot is really useful against Toddy Bottoms. She will send out her British police officer who will fly around throwing some bombs here and there, and occasionally we'll see some of her underpaid workers. This part wasn't too hard as the Crackshot always attacks exactly where it's supposed to. She then came down herself and started shooting bullet bills all over the place. I decided to take an unnecessary hit, then got some parries on her balls, before she decided the most logical thing to do was to become a plane, which went as well as you'd expect. Now, let's just get over with this one. The Iron Giant was a pain. I died 5 times in a row against this bootleg Iron Giant. I also used Miss Chalice, which is pretty much the easy mode for this game. I'm just going to go and cope in the corner after I'm done with editing this video. The beginning wasn't too hard, it was mostly just the final phase mixed with the foreground, making it impossible to see where I was going. Also, these bombs can fuck right off. See that smile they have? Yeah, they don't deserve that smile. They don't deserve any happiness in life. We then made our way back to Werner von Stroheim. I did a slight fuck up in the beginning, so I just retried. This fight isn't too difficult, even though it's pretty late into the game. There really isn't much to say about Werner, but we did witness one of anime's greatest plot twists. After abusing a German rat, we then went ahead and fought my least favorite boss in the game, Captain Rednose. This isn't a hard fight, but it's definitely a long one. Just shooting this guy on the boat until his boat can't take his BS anymore and beats him off. The boat then decides to shoot his Kaioken Kamehameha through his mouth, which was fun to parry, then twerks for a bit and tries to cope with the fact that he lost to an actual cup. It's time for another Rule 34 victim. The appropriate skin color of a mermaid known as Calamaria. I did actually fail this fight once, mostly because I thought I was dealing damage by just standing in what I thought was a safe spot. Turns out, it's not. She does some cool looking moves while we turn the eels with troll face looking faces into sushi. She loses her body and her head. This part isn't too hard, but the stupid stone turning beam comes out of nowhere and can be a bit difficult to dodge if you're not expecting it. Then plays the dance with violins to cope and we head on to Sally's stage. I think this is one of the most underrated fights in this game. It's not that hard and it's mostly just fun to play. After shooting her for a while, she then jumps into the background and leaves and lives happily ever after. Just kidding, we sent her to heaven, leaving her 2 kids with a soon-to-be alcoholic father. It then turns into this thing, which is probably the easiest phase. After it's all said and done, we unalive her even in afterlife, and the audience doesn't give a fuck. Now, the Phantom Express. As I was on a timetable, I didn't get to fight against King Dice and the Devil, so this is the final fight I managed to record. At this fight, I could probably have used any of the 3 characters I could use, as they all have weapons that are good for each phase. Roundabout is good for the first and second phase, Charge is good for the second and third phase, and Spread is good for the third, and Crackshot is good for the final phase. I did end up just using Cuphead as the Crackshot is such a useful weapon. I did actually fail twice on this boss, but just like all the others, Thomas the Tank Engine had to cope as well, and with that, the challenge is completed. Almost. Although I didn't get to do anything in Inkwell Hell, I might do it a separate time. I'm probably not gonna do that though, so don't hold on to that wish. If you did like this video, or I managed to entertain you for a while, please consider liking the video and subscribe for more stuff. That's all for now and take care.
State Equal Nation.